What was your oh shit, I'm the bad guy moment? I blew a Tic Tac through a straw into an old guy's face who was working at a car park booth when I was about 12 and still feel terrible about it a decade and a half later. Truly a terrible tactic. One time I got pissed because I overheard my parents who adopted me talking about going on a trip to the beach. They both knew I had never been. Told my mom how disappointed and pissed I was. Turns out they were planning a surprise trip for me to go to the beach. I felt so bad. After being a bit of a tear away and trying to get my shit together in school, I told off a kid for wearing a hat that the school uniform didn't allow. I later learned he was wearing the hat because he'd lost his hair to chemo. Did not feel good. Edit. For some context, this was in a UK secondary with a blazer and trousers style uniform. When I was a kid there was this boy who would always bully me, and the first day of 9th grade he came in with a shaved head. I finally had easy ammo to get back at him. Scoffed and called him Mr. Clean, Skinhead, etc etc. He died the next year from leukemia. I felt like a huge bitch. I teach middle school, so I end up having to play the villain a lot. But one time stands out where I actually was the bad guy. Last block of the day, we are working through something that is not terribly interesting. I hear a few whispers and giggles and my teacher sense goes off. Out of the corner of my eye I see that a note is being passed around the class and that's what's causing the distraction. I muster up my best stern teacher face and boom, put that in your backpack or I'm going to have to take it. Someone had found out it was my birthday. They made me a lovely card and we're all signing it D. If you're a teacher, host students actually pass a card around to sign. Consider yourself absolutely stellar. In all my school years I never once witnessed anything like this. I went to the movies with some friends when I was 13. Instead of us being the typical annoying loud teenagers, there were some loud women sitting in the row ahead. I didn't hear the women, but my friend pointed them out and complained to me. In retaliation, I threw a handful of popcorn at the women and cackled like a madwoman. Turns out I misread where my friend was pointing, and I didn't hit the annoying loud women. I hit two quiet old ladies. I felt like such an asshole. I was out of town and I went into a frozen yogurt place I'd never seen before with so many flavors. I kept asking for sample cups until I'd tried like 20 of them and was only halfway. It was amazingly fun. I heard a parent giving a lecture to their kids who wanted to copy me about how we don't act like that man, and by ours, that just ruined it for me. So I dropped a $10 in their tip jar and left. Heard someone calling my friend Richard Dick without knowing Dick was a nickname, so I got all defensive. Then I realized I was being a jackass. My granddad always gets called Dick. Took me 16 years to realize his name was Richard. I was part of a night raid in Afghanistan and the targets we were seeking left the site just before we got there. We blew the gate and shotgunned the doors and found that all the adults were gone, but had left their kids behind. Our standard operating procedure was to leave one soldier in each room as we initially cleared our way through the compound, which allowed us to move fast but not get surprised later if someone popped out of a hidden hole or something. That particular night I was stationed in this room with two little kids, probably 4 and 6. There was a little light, but not much. They were understandably crying and being really loud, and I felt bad for them. I used to carry extra food in my leg pocket, and I fished out some cookies and tried to hand them to the kids. The way they freaked out when I reached toward them, I thought those kids were going to succeed in climbing straight up the wall. The screaming was out of this world. Only then did I consider that I could see clearly because of my night vision devices. But to them, I was just a large, scary looking monster in the dark, with antennas and glowing green eyes and black balaclava with all sort of crazy stuff mounted on my head and covered in gear. While I knew these were cookies in a foil packet, it probably didn't look like anything they would identify as food. It occurred to me that those kids would probably need therapy for a long time, and it was unlikely they would ever get it. Edited for clarity. Well, yesterday I was on a 100 road and a cattle truck was going 60. I got pissed off and flashed my lights at him, and he put his indicator on and slowed down as we were approaching a turnoff. I thought, yes, he's going, I can get in front of him now, but he instead drove back onto the road and continued going 60, so I flashed my lights again and he put the blinker on again. We repeated this 4 times before I realized he was trying to let me go past him. I was screaming at my nephew a lot when he did something bad. I realized I was flying off the handle when I didn't need to be, when a calm talk would work better and not upset him or make him feel so bad. And I realized it wasn't just that he was being super bad, just a bit naughty, and kids aren't robots. I haven't screamed since the night I realized it, and while I may raise my voice, I keep that to a minimum and collect myself and calmly discuss things with him as much as possible. I still feel really guilty, but I'm trying to be better to him, and so far it's been going well. So when I was a neckbeard loser, I tried asking out this girl. She was hot, but she was also in a wheelchair. I remember thinking how awesome it would be asking her out, since I figured not too many dudes would put up with a woman in a wheelchair. She would be just so thankful for me because I'm such a good guy to look past her insecurities. So of course, I asked her out and she rejected me. At first, I was mad. I couldn't believe a lady in a wheelchair wouldn't go out with me. Like, who did she think she was? She couldn't even walk. But then, I realized I was being a jackass. I thought her being in a wheelchair would bring her down to my level, but the truth was, she was still an awesome person that shouldn't be taking scraps just because she couldn't walk. I was the condescending prick who was looking down on her. It was a wake-up call for myself and how I thought of women. It wasn't easy. Had to do some self-reflecting. Found out I had no good qualities any lady wanted to date and had to work on myself. I'm not perfect. Still catch myself in toxic thought, but I'd like to think I've improved. Got a wife, and she seems happy, so there's that at least. A guy was following me down the highway as I left my college's parking lot, night class, and he kept honking, flashing his brights, and tailgating me, so I gave him the finger about 4 separate ways. He pulled up next to me, and I even mimed looking around inside my bag for something before pulling out a middle finger. I opened the glove box and pulled out a middle finger. I went all out. Guess whose headlights weren't on? I was into Joanna drinking it up, and this was in the 90s. I left a bar, and when I made it outside, I realized that I left my wallet on the table. I went back in and saw that different people were there and no wallet. I asked them if they found a wallet and all said no. I got more aggressive with them and started to threaten them if they didn't return the wallet. I was a big guy in those days and I could tell they were scared. By this time, the bouncer is noticing, and I recognize that I'd likely get thrown out soon. So I told them that I'd be waiting for them outside and would beat their asses. I went outside and was looking in to scare them, and plus I was pissed. I then reached in my shirt pocket because I felt something there. Sure enough, my wallet was in there. Felt like such an ass and still feel like an ass when I think of it. This goes back to my first real girlfriend when we were 15. We were on and off for 3 years all throughout high school. She'd had a reputation for being crazy because she'd punched a boyfriend she had before me. All the brothers warned me not to date her. I did anyway. But, in true teenage douchebag fashion, we went through periods where I would hide our relationship because she was crazy and I didn't want to have a public relationship with her. In retrospect, she was an absolute sweetheart. Any crazy behavior from her was absolutely a reaction to how douchey guys treated her. 100% including me. She was a catch. I was an utter peanut butter and asshole sandwich to her. I still feel bad about it. We are still casual acquaintances today, but I really don't know how to apologize for how I acted 20 years ago. I feel like the statute of limitations has expired, and it would be super awkward now. Once playing snowball, my friend ducked to dodge my shot and I perfectly headshot an old woman. Edit, typo. When I asked my mom to put me up for adoption, I was around 6. I realized how shitty that was when I was 22. I still regret it till this day. 30. Edit. For those interested in the context, my father promised something some time before, and I asked about it. He denied ever making that promise, so I pushed on and said that he did. He got mad at me for insinuating that he was a liar and smacked me across the face. He then kind of forced me to go to the backyard and pick any bamboo stick from the hedge. This is the usual form of punishment. I had to come back with it and give it to him and lie down on the floor, face down, and give him a number depending on the severity of my transgressions, usually 3+. The next thing is kind of obvious. I remember that I felt so unfairly treated that I went to my mom so she could comfort me, and that's where I kind of begged her to put me up for adoption. I didn't really mean that I didn't want my mom in my life. I just wanted to get away from my dad. They divorced while I was in boarding school, around 14. I lived with my mom and she and I have never been happier. She is without a doubt my best friend. BTW. Asian household. I was a dumb teenager once. My sister was telling me that one of our neighbors was gay. Being the dumbass I was, wanting some cheap attention from rumor mongering, I tried to spread it to a friend. She went up to him that moment and ratted me out. Turns out, my sister was mad at him because he refused her advances. I learned a thing, I guess. Wasn't paying attention while driving and blew through a red light yesterday. Clipped and suv. Airbags didn't even deploy. No one is hurt. Already accepted I was a shithead idiot. And then I see the occupants of the other car tending to the baby girl in the backseat. I've never felt so lucky and hollow in my life. I could have killed a baby or her father on Father's Day. Thankfully no one is hurt at all. Thankfully they had everything to keep their child safe from idiots like me. They were surprisingly calm about it. I won't be driving for a while. And when I do, it's grandma driving for me. I hope they forgive me. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.